Welcome to Tea Time with Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. There's no surefire way to accomplish anything in life, but with each conversation, we aim to delve into diverse topics and present fresh perspectives to empower you, our fellow colleague, on your own journey to success. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joined by a former external recruiter who successfully led executive searches for various organizations over several years before transitioning her career toward talent acquisition, starting out with Riot Games, moving on to Omeo, and now her current team where she leads the talent acquisition and people experience for a highly successful Berlin organization. Drawing on her experiences from both external and internal, she has taught her team processes that have elevated their recruiting experiences, led to higher return investment from the talent function, and brought the talent teams closer to the wider business. This topic today is one that I feel teams often miss and one that I personally cannot wait to dig in with her. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in welcoming today's guest, Head of Talent and People Experience at Seven Senders, Alina Musuroaea. So thanks so much. I'm glad I've got your coffee. I've got my tea. So there you go. But thanks for joining.
Thank you for inviting me, Eden.
Great. I mean, obviously from my side, like I said that in the intro, I genuinely am excited to see how this conversation develops. But before we get into the nitty gritty and the meat of this, I do want to kind of give you, let's call it the icebreaker question, the one that everybody gets. So working talent acquisition. So what do you feel is one thing that everybody in our field is doing, but you feel that it still could be improved upon further?
I think, and it is a topic for our conversation today. But yeah, I think strategizing. I think that's something that can be improved. And I'm not talking about a high level strategy because I think most companies have that. But I'm talking about strategizing, having a game plan for your day-to-day activities, for your searches. And I'm saying this now. I'm currently recruiting for my team, so I've been interviewing myself, lots of recruiters, and I asked them, okay, what do you think is the most important thing? And in 90% of the cases, what I hear is interviewing people. And this is what they like to do, and this is what I think is the most important: interviewing people and being able to communicate with people. And obviously, this is very, very important. Not being able to communicate with people, not enjoying talking to people, well, that's not going to do it. But I wish I heard a little bit more about having a game plan, and I think that's sometimes missing from searches, and I think it can be improved overall.
Yeah, no, I think it segues quite nicely into the topic is strategizing your recruitment searches. So I'm glad you brought this up organically. Anyways, I think I want to echo that I see this a lot as well. Taking it away from your current company and what you've experienced, but seeing it into other teams as well. 100%. Most of the time I'm speaking to teams that have a job. They've kind of gone out, they've tried to find people organically through inbound or through, searches, and then they kind of get stuck because they don't know what to do next, or they've started a search and they've gone left when they should have gone right because they don't really know what kind of the focus is, and it gets a bit muddled up. So I fully agree, strategizing and understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it, and where you're going before you start anything is vital. Why do you think, I mean, before we kind of get into this then, why do you think the recruiters that you are interviewing at the moment, why do you feel that they're kind of not bringing the element of strategizing up in these interviews with you?
I think it's an overall perception, right? That this is what matters. It's about the communication, and I think is sometimes because this is what they're doing. This is what they've seen. Many times it might be because working in recruitment, most of us who started to work in recruitment by chance. I think now this is changing because there are also plenty of master programs in HR, and it's HR is quite popular at the moment. So there are young people out there. It's like they're really looking into an HR career, but traditionally it just happens, and for some reason we enjoy it, right? We have different reasons for that, but
We like stress. That's what we like.
we like stress. It might be. I think that you're right there. I think most recruiters are addicted to dopamine.
Yeah.
But no matter the reason, I think most people start in there by chance, and then they do the best they can, right? So what's the easiest? What do we do as humans, right? We communicate. So that combined with skills in reading people, in this creates okay, I can do it now. And many times, many recruiters, they do not have the opportunity to learn what I call the basics. And this is I think this is the main reason.
It's interesting because, as you say, you're actively interviewing these people today, so it's very current to be discussing it. And if people aren't organically bringing this up, by listening to this and absorbing the knowledge you're going to share, immediately can help put you in a better position, either if you're actively looking for a job or if you're in a position where you want to kind of add more value to the organization. So we've mentioned the phrase strategizing a few times already. But let's just peel it back a layer. In layman's terms, what do we actually mean when we say strategizing a recruitment search?
Very simple, having a game plan, right? So whenever we need to deliver a search, we need to have a very good game plan. So to understand what we need to do, to understand what resources we have, and to understand what is needed from the organization, because sometimes we may want to do the search in a certain way, but let's say we want to find the top person out there, but the organization needs someone really fast, or maybe they cannot afford to pay premium. So a game plan designed to get you the best, the most talented person out there might not be suitable with what your organization needs. So I think it's really understanding, okay, what resources, what is the purpose, what your organization needs, and then really creating a game plan to to hire the right person.
Who's responsible for creating this game plan? Would it fall to you as somebody who's leading the organizational efforts, or would it be down to the individual contributor who's running the search?
I think you can have a lot of different models in recruitment. So, and I've seen several. So I've seen the 360-degree recruiter. You have recruiters that, whatever you throw at them, they need to recruit.
Yeah.
I've seen the kind of the shared services center type, and I think that's probably the worst, because usually there's no connection between the recruiters and the business. So the recs, they come through I don't know, someone, a team lead, a recruitment
Portal, something
director,
like that.
and yeah. So then the third model that I personally prefer is having a partnership, a business partnership. And I think, having a recruiter, talent acquisition manager, being dedicated to a certain area, and working together with the hiring managers, working together with the leadership on that area as partners, I think this is the most successful, because this allows to have a better understanding of the area, of the business in that area, of the teams, of the the DNA, and also allows a recruiter to be involved in understanding what is the game plan for that business area.
Yeah.
And this, I think, will allow as well to the recruiters to create their own game plan at a certain level, more high level. I think there are some points or let's say decisions and criteria that have to come from a head or a team lead. But I think it needs to be needs to be a combination, and a recruiter has to develop and design their own game plan. And where is the boundary, right? What do I mean by some coming from the head
I'm
team
glad
lead,
you're coming on to this,
some
because in
from
my
the
head
recruiter?
right now, I'm saying come back to it. Okay, cool. So yeah, so what criteria fall into that?
I think, what is the role of a team lead? And I think the role of a team lead is not telling recruiters what to do, micromanaging them, this checking, okay, how many interviews you have done, how many people you're going to put forth. No, I think the role of a team lead is to manage the resources and make sure that the recruiters have the right resources, and also to make sure that if things get complicated, tense, if there are different roadblocks, right? We all know a hiring manager or who doesn't invest enough time in recruitment, right? And then sometimes recruiters, they don't know how to handle that. So that's an example of, team lead stepping in. But coming back to the role of managing resources, I think this is how you need, okay, what resources our organization has for recruitment. Overall, what is the talent strategy that we have, and what are the overall KPIs for recruitment that we have, right, from leadership. So this is what a team lead knows, and this is how they should take that information with the resources available, and then create some guidance, or create some I don't know, the grounds for
Yeah.
recruiters to then play. And for example, if I'm a recruiter who wants to deliver the best candidates out there, always wants to bring the best talent, but my organization cannot pay for that, or if I want to take my time and make sure that I speak to everyone in the market, but my organization needs someone in 3 weeks, I cannot. So this is where I need to know from my team lead and from the business what they need, and then I will create my game plan as a recruiter based on that.
Yeah. So you as a recruiter, you're the one who's driving that game plan, but you use the information from the business and you lean on your leader for information that maybe you cannot answer yourself, which I think is the right way to do it. Why is this overall important? Why would you choose to take note of the game plan first, opposed to, and the example I would give is, a front end position would come in. I've hired a front end developer before. I know the team, I know the company, I know the stack. So why would I choose to still do a game plan versus just diving right in? And I'll put my hand up. I've done this before, when I've just gone straight at it and completely missed the mark. And I've never done it since. So I've always come back now to this method. But for those who are listening, why is that game plan so important?
I think there are two reasons, and it's always, one reason is for the business and the teams, and the second reason, and I think it's really, really important, is for us as recruiters, because very rarely the situation is apples to apples in recruitment, right? Because we have to deal with people. And also businesses, although I think everyone wants to believe that there's there's always consistency, things are really, really well defined. The reality of, we live in a world that is everything but consistent and well defined. I think it's a bit chaotic at the moment, and businesses, an organization are living organism at the moment. Trying to adapt, trying to survive, trying to get that opportunity. So things change, and if we want to replicate and do the same things, and without actually spending a little bit of time to understand what is the context, we might be in a position at one point to realize that we are putting forth a lot of people, and I don't know, at some point in the process, probably the technical interviewers will say, yeah, it's good. But at one point, you'll find someone in the interviewing process who say, well, hold on, this is not the right person.
Yeah.
And it's not because the recruiter doesn't know what kind of people to put forth, but it's because something has changed. The person that we are maybe replacing, I don't know, we are trying to replace like for like, and now the business needs something else. Or I don't know, simply there's I think with tech teams, it's probably the easiest to not to spend a lot of time in understanding what's changed. But let's product management, usually business, right? Things change, and then this impacts a little bit more the roles. So we don't want to put all those efforts into interviewing people, and then at one point realize, well, this is not working. And for a recruiter, I think it's important to have a way to see that you're doing the right things, and that you are actually working towards your goals, and that you have put a lot of efforts, and that in the end you're good enough. Because that's at a for many humans, right, we struggle with this. We feel we're not good enough. And let's take an example where you've recruited for that front-end developer. You've hired many I don't know, a team. Hiring managers are really happy. You're a star recruiter. But something happens in the market and things change, right? The market is not the same. And you didn't stop to think, okay, is it something changing in the market? And you're used to, I'm putting an ad out there, I will interview candidates and it will be fine. But something has changed, or maybe you have a different hiring manager. There was a change in the organization, and this one is very very, very exigent. We've all had those kind of hiring managers, and at one point you cannot hire anyone, and it's 4 months already, you couldn't hire. And the feedback you're getting from the hiring managers, the team, you're not doing enough, you don't know what you're doing. And if a game plan was in place, you'd be able to see, well, my strategy was this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and it's not working. So what can we change? Right? Maybe it's requirements, maybe it's the market, so we need to change something. But if you don't have a plan and you can't prove to yourself, right, and to your recruitment partners that you have done everything, then it's always on you. Do more, interview more, reach out to more people.
That's so true. I think it holds you accountable to say that you've got a process behind you, and at any point, I mean, we do it from our side, because working with an external partner, you don't know what they're doing half the time. I mean, 90% of the time, until you get a CV in your inbox, you don't know what's been done, right? So I think we've learned that the hard way at the beginning, and then now everything is completely transparent. And the idea is that if a hiring manager says to us, we want an update, within 5 minutes, I can put the information together and say, this is exactly where we are within the process. This is the data. This is why you have or have not received X amount of profiles. But you're absolutely right. Until you know that, you cannot, it's just, your word against theirs. And I always say you become a moany recruiter then, instead of a data-led recruiter. which on the internal
I
side,
like that.
yeah, no, please do. On the internal side, I think it's a little bit easier because you've got the data to hand on insert ATS system name here, and in theory, the hiring manager should know how to use it, or not necessarily could be shown how to use it. So it's a little bit easier on that side. But I fully agree. That game plan, and especially where things start to go wrong, you can always track it back. And yeah, as you say, hiring manager changed. Did you rediscuss the position with them? Has anything changed? Or it's been open for 4 months. Are you having frequent conversations with them? Because 4 months is a long time. Roadmaps adjust, as you say, businesses adjust. The role has likely adjusted, or is the role even still there? If you've gone 4 months and haven't hired someone, do you still actually need this person? So there's a lot of things that you can be doing. But the big point is, so we understand what it is, we understand why it's important, but the how, I think, is the part that a lot of people struggle with. And I'd like to try and tackle this from two angles. So I'll give you both angles first, and then you can decide what you want to dive into. But how can we create a game plan and strategize a search coming into an existing team? So a team that
Mhm.
is established, they already have processes, they might have longevity amongst the employees, and it becomes a little bit more difficult to maybe make those adjustments. And on the flip side is maybe you're starting a team completely from scratch yourself. So you've been hired as the head of or the first recruiter, and you're responsible for building what this looks like for the future. So how can we go and create a standard process that you can hold yourself accountable to, and then hopefully over time, if it's an existing team, or a new team, you can train others to do so as well.
I think probably being able to start from scratch it's easier, because then you can design everything, build everything, hire people that you think will be best for what you design. First, I think it's a little bit difficult because we have to deal with change management, and I think it's easier to design something from scratch than optimize something. In my experience, I think in executive search or recruitment, and I've always worked in retained search, and I think this is, I was mentioning, right, as a recruiter, you need to have the basis. This was my chance, because I've started in a retained search boutique, and they would have all the best practices, and I had to learn and practice all the basics. So in executive search and recruitment, I had the chance to build from scratch, but in internal talent acquisition, I didn't. I was lucky because I think I've always worked with great colleagues or great teams. But again, that change management process still needs to be done. So we mentioned before, right, that every organization needs to hire people, right? But the context is a little bit different. So there are the three elements that are really, really important. And it's about who do we hire, quality. We want to hire the best, or maybe, a good is just enough. Second is money. And do we have the money to throw out there, or we don't really have money? So, we need to organize everything around that. And third is speed. Does the organization need to have this person immediately, or do they have, enough time to search for the best person, and just hire when you find the best person? And I think it's really important to understand when you join a new team, to understand what your organization needs and where they are at. And I think that all organization may be in a certain moment in a situation that would be very, very different, right? So this will apply for the same organization, but different moments in time. And I mean, maybe people would say, but why not all of it? Well, I think it's a bit difficult
The
because
unicorn search.
they kind of go against
Yeah.
each other, right? So and you need to find the best way to balance it, or simply just choose the two that are most important. And I think this is the first thing that you need to do coming into a new team, understanding your organization. Okay, and just to give an example, right? And that's usually my my experience. Joining an organization that needs to
Mhm.
scale. So when an organization needs to scale, then they need to scale fast, because usually, and you know that, right, the moment you need someone, you're already
Yeah.
behind. And then it's important to understand, okay, do they want the best talent, or good is just enough? And for me, joining, I've seen both situations where the organization had a lot of money, right? They had a lot of funding, they needed to scale, and they needed the best talent, but they had a lot of money. So that's something to take in consideration. And basically, whatever you build is built around
Mhm.
that. But I've also joined organization where they needed to scale, and they didn't have too much money to invest in recruitment, or to um, to throw at people. And but they still wanted the best talent out there. And then it's first is a discussion to do with the management and understand, okay, so where can we
Mhm.
compromise? And what I really liked is that all organization I work for, they've always wanted to have the best talent. And I think that's exciting, because we want to bring the best person out there. It makes us
Breeds a
feel,
good culture as
that
well.
we've accomplished something in the group.
People tend to stay where good people are.
Exactly, exactly. And then it's really negotiating. And for some organization, it was, okay, we're going to invest more.
Mhm.
For some, it was, you know what, we can wait. And I'm giving an example from Riot Games now. Um,
From the past here.
we actually we've it was one
But-
of my favorite company to work for, because I'm somehow like a mini gamer. And I really love the fact that they were um so into creating the best culture out
Mhm.
there. But I think it took a year and a half at one point to hire
Wow.
someone, but they really wanted to have
Yeah.
everything. And well, that's not an example of how it should be,
Well, I mean, it's a
but
different topic.
just
Yeah,
an
yeah.
example of
I get what you mean by that point.
yeah. And so that's the first step. So negotiate with the management. Okay, understand what they need. Understand what they need and understand what they want. Sometimes they're two different things, and then negotiate. And then when you have this, you have a strategy, and you know what your resources are. And I think then the next step is to understand what kind of model you
Mhm.
have in place, and how are recruiters working. And I came into organization where they already had a specialty model in place, and I've came also into organization that didn't. And it was pretty much, it was somehow, some recruiters were doing tech. But then, for example, you would have operation and you would have business, and it would be a bit of a mess. And that was the first step for me, right? Understanding, okay, this is what we have in place. This is what I
Mhm.
want to build. And I think the situation, it was really perfect to have this partnership model, and then is understanding different teams, and understanding also the recruitment team. So what do they want? What skills they have? What are their talents? What are their flaws? And then creating this, changing a little bit the way the team is structured. And then it was always about encouraging that conversation. Sometimes it needs to be facilitated, especially if there isn't a culture where the recruiter is seen as a partner. If there isn't a culture of communication, and if there isn't a culture of presenting your findings in your update, and then not only looking at the people that you have in the process, but also looking at the process and what's at the context, and presenting your findings, and then negotiating. And one of the roles I had, that was exactly the case. So it was a bit of a mix. So first organizing different recruiters and different teams, and then facilitating that. And it, for me, just happened, and I think it many times this can accelerate. It just happened that there was also a little bit of conflict, in the sense that we had several hiring managers, several people in business who were not happy, and we had recruiters who were so hardworking, and they were working so hard, and they were doing their best, and nobody was happy, and everyone was blaming the other party. So facilitating that conversation, and then worked, okay, let's look at the basics. Do we have a game plan? And we saw, okay, we don't have a game plan. And then we started first with some kind of I don't really like this term, but for the lack of a better word, SLA. Okay, how do we want to work with each other? And in the beginning of that, the first point was, you, my hiring manager, and your team need to give me all that information, do like a proper briefing, spend that time with me so I can see what you need. And then different other components of the process, how we want to do this. And then it was a bit I felt a little bit like a peace negotiator,
Bringing
hearing
all parties together.
letting both parties meet. Yeah. And it was here, just to have a bit of humor here. The meeting was finished, and then both parties came to me and said, well, I'm not happy with this, I was this and that and this and that. And I just realized, okay, so that I've done a good job. If none of them are happy, this means that it's working, because both of them have to change. And I think if one of the parties were overly happy, then I would have known, okay, I didn't do a good job, because that's, I didn't get that balance there. And it was important to have that in place. I think it was more or less the same with different areas, but not all of it thankfully had this kind of tense situation. And from then, I think it's really, really important to establish that briefing moment. I think, you can call it kickoff, you can call it briefing. I think every company has their own term, but it's really, really important to make sure that it's there. And from that on, then the basis of we need to have a game plan was instilled, and both recruiters and the people in business knew they had to do that. And so that was, I think, and it is the most important thing. So
creating that non-negotiable
why is
part
important
of saying, before we start the search, this is what I need from you. I think it kind of comes back to what you were saying earlier about business partnerships, and I've referred back to it in a lot of the podcasts so far. But series 1, episode 1, Alex, the global talent acquisition manager at Willie, has titled from service partner to business partner. And the shift is happening where internal recruiters and talent teams are becoming business partners, but I think it needs to be rapidly enhanced. Because there's certain things. I went to a conference last year. It's called RecFest. It was really good. Don't get me wrong, but it's mostly internal recruiters, and I'm just listening. I'm just understanding where everyone's sitting and what their thought process is. And it surprised me. There's a lot of things that we're talking about now that they've only just started to bring into their teams, and like data-led discussions. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, we've done that for the last 4 or 5 years. Like that's how it should be done, from our opinion. But it's interesting to see kind of the difference of where different people are, different organizations are. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that kickoff, that whole strategy, once everyone is aligned to it and they see the benefits of doing it, then it becomes, as I said, that non-negotiable element of the process. It always gives you something to fall back on.
Absolutely, and it's so simple, but somehow it's easy to skip, right? Because we want to
Especially if you've got like
to
30
it,
reps on.
and then exactly, yeah. I said, okay, I'll do.
Yeah.
I'll figure out, and then I'll get some of it done, and then I can do it properly. I think I've seen this and I heard this, and it's not working. And once you have that in place, I think it's really important to work on what I've said earlier, right? Like the team lead managing resources. So to understand, okay, what is available for us, because I don't know, some companies may not have that many resources. So what's available for them is yes, job posting, referrals, right? But maybe even here they don't have big referral bonuses, and most of the time is direct search on LinkedIn. Some companies have budgets for advertising, so all job boards out there. They can use some platform for sourcing in addition to LinkedIn. They have maybe they have an employer branding team or internal communication team and a lot of money to do referral campaigns. So whatever it is, it's the role of the team leads to understand what we have in place and define what are the possible channels we can use. And also, I think it's really important to have some basic benchmarks. And I'm calling it benchmarks because I think when people hear KPIs or targets, especially us recruiters, when we hear targets, it's something happens inside us, something
Honestly, I
breaks
hate them.
inside us. I think yes, because I think many times targets are used and KPIs are used to put more pressure. And how many times have you been part of that conversation on what your target
Exactly.
should be?
I mean,
Probably.
now I run my own company, or
Exactly.
co-own my own company. It's a little bit easier, and obviously we have to target ourselves on how much money we're bringing in. But the pressure, the stress that you have on it, and it's always driven by leaders who aren't on the tools themselves, and especially going through COVID the first time, COVID part one, let's call it, and they're saying do this, do that. It's like, but you're not doing it. You don't understand right now, and we've never gone through something like this, so you have no idea. Let's adjust, let's reevaluate, and it takes so long to get those conversations going, and then until it happens, you're berated until you're you know what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been there, and it's not working. So I think that's why I like the word benchmark, because we need this to be able to understand a baseline and to be able to understand where can we get, and to have you can't reach your objective if you're not measuring what you're doing. And I think that's again really important, and I've done it in the beginning. And here I think two maybe two things that are really important so you get it right. And I think it's easier for smaller companies than big companies who already have some kind of a system in place, and it's more difficult to change it. And those two things are involve your team in setting the benchmarks. Explain how we want to use it and how this can help them and can help recruitment overall. But involve them. Find out what they think. And I was surprised, and I've done it also in the past. I decided, okay, this is the right way to do it. I have the experience, you don't, so
Yeah.
let's do it like this. I admit I've done it, but then I realized that I need to get people with me. And I was surprised that once you start that conversation, in the beginning, it's a pushback. Why do we need it? We're going to, be whipped with it. And somehow then you go through that conversation, and people come with actually more ambitious benchmark that you actually wanted to put in place. And that's really important. And equally important is discuss those benchmarks with management, with leadership, because it's very easy, especially when you work in I think in a tech scale up. We want to see data, we want to see the funnel, we want to see this and that. And sometimes leadership forgets that it's recruitment. It's an art, right? It's not just math. And yeah, and it's a craft. It's talking to people, it's working with people. It's not math, right? So it's really important to put in place KPIs, benchmarks, and discuss why do you want to use it, and why why you want to improve it, but why this is it, right? And you can't improve it from month to month, like, I don't know, you improve something else. And very important, I think, in my opinion, is to not to have individual targets, to have team targets or benchmarks, and make sure that you create an environment where people want to work towards it, and they want to do it together.
Of each other as well.
Yes, the moment.
Yeah.
And they help each other, right? I have a good candidate, I think it's better suited for your role. And okay, I'm helping you source here because I know this. And if there are individual targets, then people start to compete, but not in a good way, or they simply they are overcome with fear. So if they know, okay, I'm going to be judged for my targets by my boss, and then also the I don't know, the leadership of the company, if they go into those details, and sometimes they do, and they won't be their best, they won't do their best. So I think this is really important. So talking to your team and making sure that these are team benchmarks and not individual benchmarks, and also making that clear to the leadership, and making clear to the main stakeholders. So again,
Perfect.
really important.
We're going to wrap it up there because there's a lot to cover in this, and I want those who are listening to go out and try and action this, and hopefully they've learned the importance of strategizing your search and how we can actually go and at least start those first couple of steps and take it from there. But I really do appreciate you spending some time with us and sharing the knowledge. Like I said, there's so much that I'm coming away from, which is always nice to see, and it's definitely a topic that I fully agree from your first comment is something that needs to be drastically improved. And the moment, even as an IC recruiter or as a leader, if you can start making adjustments here, it's only going to better your career long term, and give you the opportunities to take further steps, forward. So I really appreciate you taking the time on this one. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Eden. And I'm sure that I'm going to, go out of this call and say, I could have said that and could have said that. But it always happens. But I do think that those steps that I mentioned, although very simple, sometimes they are missed. So I'm hoping that Maybe people hear it and they just they knew it maybe before, but if they hear once more that these are important, maybe they it does help them. And yeah, thank you so much. You're
Appreciate that.
awesome
Thank
as
you.
usual.